Hey guys, this is Caleb with DSLR Video Shooter, where it's all about making better videos, and today we're going to take a look at getting some really cool slow motion camera movement shots. I recently finished my A6300 guide, and in that guide at the beginning of each section I did a little intro, and I'll show that to you now. Welcome to the audio section of the A6300 guide. In this section, when I released the guide and shared one of the sections for free, which you can check out in the description, a lot of people asked me how I shot that, what was involved with that. So today I'm going to show you exactly how I pulled that off. It's really simple. All you need is some kind of way to move the camera, whether by hand or with a slider or with a jib, and we'll take a look at those, and a camera that shoots 60 to 120 frames per second. So good candidates would be Canon's 80D or the GH4, or even better than all those, the A6300, because we have 120 frames per second. So those shots were shot on the GH4 at 96 frames per second. So let's head over to the bench and see how I pulled it off. Okay, so let's take a look at the rigging part of this trick. So we're gonna look at a slider as well as using a jib, and then briefly talk about how you don't need to necessarily use a slider or a jib. This slider is the Shark S1 slider from iFootage. I've done a review a long time ago on this, and it's a great slider, but really any slider would do. Now the way this is going to work is we're going to record some slow motion footage, bring it into post, and alter the speed and framing to kind of create that cool effect we saw earlier. Now there's two things you need to have set up. First of all, we are going to need to have a consistent move. So you don't want to, change the speed. You want a consistent move. So we're not looking to change the speed, we just want one consistent move. All the speed changes will be done in post. The other thing is you want to pick one frame or a middle area of the camera move to set your focus. So I'll switch to this camera here, the GH4. Right about here is where I want to, in post, slow it down real slow. So right in here is where I'm going to have my focus set. And I'm kind of using this Zeiss tag as my focus area. So it's going to be out of focus on either end, which is totally fine, and it kind of adds to the effect in the reveal. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm not going to keep the lens in the center of the frame during the whole move. I'm going to start kind of like this and do more of a reveal. Once I get to the center, then I'm going to, pan and keep the Zeiss logo and the lens in the center, and then I'll kind of let the lens fall back out of frame. So that's kind of the camera move, pretty straightforward. So you set your focus at the frame where you want to slow things down, and remember to kind of do a reveal, and you can do whatever you want there. And the only other thing is to have consistent camera movement. Don't be whipping it around. Settings wise, I'm using the GH4, shooting at 96 frames per second. So whatever camera you're using, shoot as slow as you can, because we can always speed up, you can't always slow it down more. I also have my shutter speed really jacked up. Normally shooting at 96 frames per second, around 200th would be a good idea for shutter speed. I'm double that at 1/400th, so really high shutter speed is going to help smooth things out once we slow it all down. And if you see any flickering in any of the footage, it's because this tungsten light that's above us shooting and letting us see the camera is not really a video light. So you might see a little bit of flickering, and that's going to be that light. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and record a couple of these. And I usually, when I do this kind of stuff, just shoot a whole bunch of them, and I don't stop recording. That way I just have one video file that I can kind of sift through and find the good stuff. So again, consistent movement. Try to move as slow as possible. Honestly, between you and me, I really suck at sliders and camera movement in general. I'm just not very skilled at it. This slider helps because it's a belt system, has a belt system, so that really helps. But in general, I'm not very good, and that's where slow motion is nice because it's going to kind of help smooth all the jitters out. And I'm just going to keep going back and forth here. I usually go until I have a couple good ones in the can. Okay, so I feel pretty good about those. Now what we're going to do is we are going to look at how to do something similar but on a jib. Then we're going to pull everything into post, and we'll look at a couple different options on how to create that effect that we saw a little bit earlier. Okay, so here's another setup with a jib. I have the Genistech jib. I've done a review on it. Really great little jib. Stays out of the way, nice and compact. So what we're going to be doing is tilting the camera from below the table up and revealing the lens over on the table. So let's go ahead and lock this off. And again, our goal is consistent, smooth movement. And as usual, I just do a couple of these until I feel like I've got a couple decent ones in the can and some options for post. And so that's just another option. Instead of using a slider, you could throw a jib in. If you don't have a slider or a jib, you could even just use a tripod like the one I'm on now. Let me change it over here. So I have two legs. I don't know if I'll be able to show this. Yeah, two legs on either side, kind of straddling the lens and the camera. And let me tilt up here. You could just do something like this, where you're just leaning the camera tripod system forward. That would give you enough movement to do something similar, and you wouldn't need a slider or a jib. So I am in Final Cut Pro 10. What I'm about to do can probably easily be done in Premiere as well, but this is going to be for Final Cut, or at least this tutorial. So we have our slider shot, which I'll play back here. This is the slow motion, not real time, which is what we saw earlier. This might not have been the best subject because the lines and moire is going to be kind of a pain here. Essentially, we're going to have the beginning, let me mute this, beginning be slow, and then it's going to speed up and then slow down around here so we can see the Zeiss logo, and then it'll speed up and zip to the other end. So to do that, we're going to use the retime editor, which all that stuff can be controlled with this weird button right over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit play. I'm going to turn my music on here, position this at the front. I'm going to play it until I want it to speed up, and then I'm going to hit Shift and B. And what it's done here, let me zoom in a little bit, is we can see we now have these two green bars, one for this first section and another for this second section. That's how we're going to control the speed. So we're at 100%, which is slow motion at the beginning. And then we are going to find where it's going to slow down. So just bear with me, guys. I know this seems a little confusing. Right in here, hit Shift B again. Now we're going to leave normal or 100% for the beginning, 100% for the Zeiss logo area, and I'm going to get rid of that window. Speed up the middle, and let's do custom. For this, I like to do about 5,000%. And now let's see what we have. Boom, it looks pretty good. Play it back again. Not bad, not bad. So now that we have the beginning section where it goes slow and then fast and then slow again, we're gonna finish up the end here. So I'm just looking for a good spot. Right about there. I'm gonna hit Shift B again. And then for this outro section, I'm going to speed it up, but not as fast, so 5,000. Or I'm sorry, 20,000%. So that's looking pretty good. Let's play it back again. So as you can see, normal speed or slow motion, fast, slow motion, fast. That's all there is to it. So that looks pretty good. The other thing I'm going to do to kind of emphasize the speed change is by changing our framing. So I'm going to play it back here and find a good spot to punch in. So right there. And I'm going to go up to the inspector under transform. Instead of doing just scale, I'm going to hit this little down arrow and hit add under keyframes. That'll add a keyframe for each of these perimeters. Then I'm going to go back 3 frames. I'm going to add another set of keyframes. And this little blue arrow, when you hover over it next to each of these, if I click that, it'll jump me to that first one we set. And now I'm going to zoom in here and reposition the frame. Something like that. Let's see what that looks like. Looks pretty good. Then I'm gonna do a zoom out as well. So right about when it starts to change speed, I'm going to add a keyframe. And we'll just, to the very end, we'll reset this. So add another keyframe and center things, set the scale back to 100 and see what that looks like. Pretty good. So here's the final cut. So that's using the footage we just shot. Now I want to show you the actual project for the A6300 guide. So here it is. There's a couple different shots here. Let's do this one. It's one of my favorites. I'll play it through. You guys already saw this. Starts slow, goes fast, and then slows back down. I'm going to hit Command R to open it up, and you can see it's the exact same thing we were just doing. 100%, speeds up, and then jumps in. If we look up here at the transform area, you'll see the changes made. And then that's it. So on that one, I didn't speed back up at the end. So a couple things to think about with this whole process. First, it's just going to take a lot of practice to get retiming down. It's pretty complicated. There's actually a lot of math involved, but Final Cut makes it pretty click and draggy, if you will. So play around with it. If anything, if you don't want to use retiming, you could just make cuts and speed up, break this one clip into several little clips and change the speeds that way. Just experiment with it. There's a lot of cool things you can do with retiming. So that's how you can shoot some high frame rate camera movement shots and get some really cool results in post. That does it for this video. If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to make sure you keep up to date with all the videos here at DSLR Video Shooter. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.